Welcome to our April 2026 webinar for a spotlight on automation in Sage 300 using Process Scheduler, Report Runner and Extender. We will focus on reporting and other tasks particularly relevant for companies running multiple entities in Sage 300. Among the range of Orchid add-ons for Sage 300, today we will concentrate on our tailoring and automation suite of products, mainly Process Scheduler and Extender. And in the reporting front, we will present Report Runner, mainly Financial Report Runner for GL financial reports. Process Scheduler lets you run critical recurring Sage 300 processes automatically, particularly if you have multiple Sage 300 databases. You can run many tasks in different companies without having to log on and off those companies. Report Runner streamlines the setup, execution and distribution of Crystal and financial reports. Today, we will concentrate on financial reports. Extender is a cost-effective way to configure and tailor Sage 300. Today, we will demonstrate examples that don't require user intervention. So it's more around time-based alerts and automations, where Process Scheduler determines when to run those processes and Extender scripts work out what you're going to do in Sage 300. Those three modules combined let you automate your Sage 300 operations and your reporting from manual to more stress-free efficiency. Today's agenda. Anne and I are going to highlight some new features in Process Scheduler. We will then go through an example in Process Scheduler across multiple entities using some of these new features. So the example is around opening and closing fiscal period in Sage 300, but the demonstration will highlight the key steps and tips to set up and use Process Scheduler. We'll follow with a detailed presentation on Financial Report Runner to run GL financial reports across multiple companies. We will then discuss and demonstrate various examples of using Process Scheduler and Extender scripts for a powerful and flexible approach to automate Sage 300 alerts and processes. Process Scheduler lets you automate important repetitive tasks within one or across companies. You can run processes unattended in off-peak hours reliably and securely. You receive configurable email notifications and detailed logging happens to help you manage by exception while meeting your auditor's requirements. As we've discussed, it combines very well with those Orchid modules, Report Runner, Info Explorer and Extender. Today we will not go through Info Explorer. There are three levels in Process Scheduler. Level 1 for data integrity, Crystal reports, Info Explorer cubes, Extender scripts. Level 2 includes all of Level 1 actions plus day end and posting. Level 3 includes all of Level 2 plus advanced actions around custom processes and managing fiscal year and period in Sage 300. You can start with Level 1, upgrade to Level 2 and Level 3, as each level includes the previous level's action, and the setup is all very similar. This webinar coincides with new features and new actions in Process Scheduler that we've recently released in PU13. It applies to versions 2026, 2025 and 2024 of Sage 300. We have a new action that lets you create a GL New Year. Another action lets you open a very specific fiscal year and fiscal period. Similarly, you can close a specific fiscal year and fiscal period. We've also amended the Run Financial Report group in Process Scheduler Level 3, so you can run it for a specific fiscal year and period. All this is particularly relevant if you're running these Sage processes across a range of companies. We've also improved the Process Scheduler Setup report. It now displays details about all the scheduler actions, including the last run date and the last status. So this should help satisfy auditors' requirements to document alerts and automations. So now I'm going to hand over to Anne to go through these new actions in Process Scheduler.
In Process Scheduler, we have created 3 new Level 3 actions. The first one is to create a GL New Year. So this runs the GL periodic processing create new year process. The next 2 are to open a specific fiscal year and period per module, or to close a specific fiscal year and period per module. When would you use these? So they expand on our existing actions. So we've always had create fiscal calendar, which just creates the new year with all the periods being open. But now you can create the new GL year in conjunction with creating the fiscal calendar. And we've had open and close of the next periods. So having a look in the help on how those work. We've always had the ability to open the next period, which allows you to open the subsequent period, the one after the last open period, and allows you to close the earliest open period. So using those in conjunction when you need them, you can open the next period and then close the current period. But it's always been relative to what's open and closed at the moment. But now you are able to open a specific year and period. So for example, you might be in June and need to open January for a particular reason in a number of companies. And these functions are particularly useful when you have multiple Sage 300 databases, because you can at one click run these tasks across multiple databases, saving you logging in and out of the companies and running those same tasks. So having a look at this in Sage 300, if we go to our Process Scheduler Setup Schedule screen and pick up the Create New Year schedule, you can see that we're always sending an email when the schedule runs. That is the message that we're going to use when we send the email. And then in Orc Limited, we're going to open the year. And then in Orc Limited, we're going to create the GL New Year. So Open Year runs the Common Services Fiscal Calendar, Create New Year, and this runs the GL process, the GL Periodic Processing, GL Create New Year. And we're doing that in Orc Limited, and then in Orking 2, Orking 3, and Orking 4. And then you could create a schedule to run this through Windows Task Scheduler. If you wanted to run now, you could do so as long as there were no other users in Orking 2, Orking 3, or Orking 4, as GL requires exclusive access. But you're not able to run now when you're in the Process Scheduler company itself, because you are a user within that company. So you'd have to use the Windows Task Scheduler to schedule this schedule if it contains the company where you store your schedules. And having a look at the open and close specific periods, this schedule has been set up to run in Orc Limited, followed by Orking 2, 3, and 4. And if we look at the detail, it is opening a specific fiscal year and period for all modules. And in this case, I'm in April 2026, and it is opening all modules for 2026-01. And then after doing what we need to do, we could run a second schedule, which would then close that same specific period. But when you're using open and close fiscal year and fiscal period, you can choose per company the actual module that you want to do as well. So if you were only wanting to open accounts payable and general ledger, for example, you could have 2 lines per company opening January 2026 for accounts payable and general ledger. And the setup that you need for Process Scheduler to run these sorts of schedules, in the options, you need to configure which of your companies you're going to store your schedules in, and in my case, it's in Orc Limited. And then for all those companies that you want to run an action in, you need to specify a user ID and a password for Process Scheduler to use to log into that company and run that particular function. And I'd also like to draw your attention to our report for print schedules, because although this prints the schedules that you've set up, it also includes the last status and any log file that you have from that particular schedule in the last run. So it's quite a useful audit tool and checking tool as well. So we can see that with our daily checks, the last time it was run, what the status was, and if there's any log files, where the log file is. But remember, this is also accessible from within the schedule. You can look at the audit trail within a date range, and it shows you the full audit history of when that schedule was run, and if there were any error messages and the emails that were sent. So in our case, our process scheduler was unable to send an email, or it failed in this case.
Thanks, Anne. Anne has demonstrated how to use Process Scheduler with an example of opening and closing fiscal year, fiscal period, creating GL New Year. The steps to configure are the same regardless of the task you're trying to automate with Process Scheduler. You configure it once, and then you can automate across multiple companies. Set up your Process Scheduler options with the email details and your Sage 300 details. For all the companies where you're running schedule, save the Sage 300 details. Create the schedule to define what to automate in Process Scheduler. And then you configure Windows Task Scheduler to work out when to run the automations. It is easy to upgrade. You just need to activate Process Scheduler, the new version, resave the Sage 300 details, and update the task in Windows Task Scheduler. In the next part of the presentation, we're going to look at using Report Runner with Process Scheduler. Who needs Report Runner? Do you spend time setting up, running, and distributing recurring reports, either Crystal reports or Sage 300 financial reports? Do you find that some of your team members struggle to access the reports they need when they need them and end up wasting time or making poor decisions? Would you like to improve both efficiency and data security, ensuring staff can easily launch and access the reports that are relevant to them? All that without being distracted or having unauthorized access to the reports they don't need. Report Runner lets you streamline the setup, execution, and distribution of reports in Sage 300. You can easily locate, launch, and access the reports with menus that can be specific to your roles. You can refresh and distribute a range of reports, Crystal reports, and GL financial reports, and tailor the menus for the different users, which enhances their productivity and the security of your reports. You group your reports by function, by process. You configure this based on your business needs. You save the report parameters for easy rerunning, how to name the reports, where to save them, and it acts as a central repository of all your reports. And with Process Scheduler, you can then automate when these reports are refreshed in emails. This is what the setup looks like. We have two main parts. One is Report Runner for Crystal reports, both Sage 300 reports and custom Crystal reports. And we have Report Runner for financial reports, which is what we're going to focus on today. Back to you, Anne.
Thanks, Natalie. First, we'll have a look at the GL Financial Report Runner. Using the GL Financial Report Runner, you are able to configure different report groups for the different stakeholders. For example, you might have a group for a CFO, which includes all the KPI reports for all divisions. And you might have divisional report groups for the different department managers. The Financial Report Runner can run and save and email multiple GL financial reports in one go. And it creates, if you are emailing, it creates a single email with multiple workbooks attached. You can also have multiple sheets in a workbook with FR specs on each sheet, and then Financial Report Runner will run each of the individual sheets and bundle them together in a single workbook, and then email the single workbook if that's what you need. And when you're running a report through the Financial Report Runner, you specify the fiscal year and period when you click Run. All the other parameters, the way you run that report, are saved when you attach the report to the desktop. But if you use Process Scheduler on top of the Financial Report Runner, you can schedule now, or you could schedule at 1 a.m. every Monday morning. And it is able to run a financial report group. And you specify the email parameters that you want to run if you want to email the report. And when you run, you can either run all the reports in a group in one company or across multiple companies. And you've always been able to configure the financial reports when they're run to run for the current period, the previous period, or the next fiscal period based on the date the schedule runs. And you can do the same with the financial year. So current financial year, previous financial year, or next financial year. But what we've added now is the ability to run for a specific fiscal year and period. So let's go and have a look at Financial Report Runner and the Process Scheduler action to run a financial report group. You configure your financial reports in Information Manager Analytical Reports in the Financial Report Runner option. Here you are able to create menus of the reports that you want to run. So right-hand mouse button, you can add a group. And in my case, I've got a group for my Department 100 and Department 200 reports, and I've got some saved runs. And then within a group, you can right-hand mouse button and add a report. So let's go and edit one of these reports. So this report, when I add it to the desktop, I'm browsing to find a standard GL report. So this is an FR report that you have created previously for GL. And you can give it a friendly name, and then you fill in the parameters, how you normally run this particular report. So in my case, the segment division is limited from 100 to 200. And then you go ahead and attach all the reports. So for my Department 100 group, I am running 4 reports, and I could go ahead and select all of them and go ahead and print and run them. So it's going to run these 4 reports in that order, and we're going to pass in the fiscal year and the fiscal period that you want. So at the time of clicking print, you say which fiscal year and which fiscal period do you want. So by selecting a saved run, you can predetermine the path where these files are to go, the naming convention you want for the files, and if you are wanting to email, it can pre-save who your email list is. So you can have multiple email addresses separated by a semicolon. And at the time of running, it's going to run these 3 reports in that order, save it in this directory using the original file name and adding year, month, day, _ Department 100 to the reports, and email it to Anne, and this is the fiscal year and period that it's running for. So if I want to run right now for April, so that's the 4th period of 2026, I'd go ahead and print. And you can see Financial Report Runner kicks off in the background, runs the reports, saves them in the folder which I nominated, and will bundle them up and email them. So I'm just going to speed it up because I've got 3 reports there. And the email's been sent. The files have been saved in the appropriate directory. So although not strictly speaking scheduled, they are run one after the other, so you don't have to open each one and run each report individually. And if we were to use Process Scheduler, and I'll just find my schedule for running financial reports. And let's look at the detail of the first row. You can see we are able to run a financial report group. And this is a level 3 Process Scheduler action. And if you choose Run Financial Report Group, you can select which company you want to run it in, which financial report group that you want. So that is the headings that are added, right-hand mouse button, add a group. So we're running the reports that are grouped together under the heading Department 100. And we are able to choose whether we want to use the current year, next year, or previous fiscal year. And that's what's always been available, but now we are able to choose individual years as well. So I'll leave this one as current year, previous fiscal period. So it's April, so this will run for March 2026. And this is the subject of the email, who's going to receive the email, and the directory where we want these to be stored. What to do next. So the next step is step 2, where we're running a financial report group, but this time an Orchid 2. So you're able to not only run reports grouped by heading in the current company, and you can run multiple of those, you are able to run those as well across multiple companies. But in this case, I'm going to run for January 2026. So I'm going to go ahead and just run that now, and I'll talk through the log once it's finished. So you can see it first connects to Orc Limited, and then using 2026 period 3, it runs the first report, saves it, runs the second report, saves it, runs the third report, saves it, and then attaches the reports to the email and sends the email, and then connects to Orchid 2 to pick up the next financial report group, runs the first report, saves it, second report, saves it, third report, saves it, and then emails that. And the last status is updated on the schedule. In the audit log, we have a history of all the times the reports have run and any issues that may have happened. For example, we had some problems with the email password, and at any you can see the success or failure of any of the tasks that have run, which is a great auditing tool. And so if we look at the folder where they were being created, for Orchid 2 in FR monthly, the 2026 reports are being created. The 2026 period 1 reports have been created. And for Orc Limited, we've got the March 2026 reports being created. And 2 emails have been sent, one for the Orchid 2 reports and one for the Orc Limited reports. And if you do want to run these reports on a schedule, as opposed to clicking now on the Process Scheduler schedule, you can use the Windows Task Scheduler and set up a task. So having a look at what you need to do, you would say that your task runs whether the user's logged in or not, and you would use a server, so you don't need to leave a workstation open and running in order for these reports to run. The trigger is when is it going to do it. So I've set mine to run weekly at 1 a.m. every Monday, but you can have multiple schedules. It could be monthly, daily, weekly, hourly. And the action is where you go ahead and tell it to run the OZ process scheduler exe, and the parameter is the schedule name that we were looking at. And that's all you need to do. And now this would run every Monday at 1 a.m. And that's the link, the schedule name. And the setup that you need in both Information Manager, Report Runner, and in Process Scheduler is in the setup for Report Runner. The critical piece of setup that you need to do is to specify what is the directory that you're going to save those saved reports in. You also need to configure the email. So I had to configure the email in Information Manager for Orc Ltd as well as for Orc Inc. too, because it is Report Runner or Information Manager that's sending the report. And then you need to attach the reports that you want on the Financial Report Runner menu. And that's all you need for Report Runner. But for Process Scheduler, in the options, you need to say which is the company that the schedules will be stored in my case, Orc Ltd, and the emails that are to be sent coming from Process Scheduler. And then you also need to specify for each of the companies where you're going to run a schedule. So for our case, Orc Inc. 2, where we're going to run some financial reports, as well as Orc Ltd, where we're going to run some financial reports, you need to fill in the user ID and password for Process Scheduler to use. And then, of course, you need to have your schedule.
Thanks, Anne. Anne has shown us how to use Report Runner to run GL financial reports, creating your groups, and then using Process Scheduler Level 3 to refresh these report groups automatically for different companies and different fiscal year and periods, either relative to the year you're in now, and you'd use the next fiscal year for budget, for example. But you can also do it for a very specific year and period at any point in time across your different companies, email and save the printed reports into a configured folder. You can find the steps to configure Report Runner in the online help, as well as the visual process flow is a summary of the steps that you need. Configure your customization directory, add the reports to the menu in Information Manager Report Runner, and you can then run them and set up Process Scheduler as we've discussed previously. In this presentation, we will look at flexible and powerful automation of Sage 300 processes and alerts by combining Extender and Process Scheduler. How does it work? We use Extender and its capacity to run Python scripts to define what we want to do in Sage 300. We use Process Scheduler Level 1 to control when and how often the automation runs. And this can run in multiple companies from within one schedule. Some examples of processes we can automate without user intervention: alerts and actions before a bottleneck arises in managing shipments and purchase order receipts. We can automate data gathering to focus on action, such as identify customers who have overdue transactions. We can also use it for proactive customer management, for example, with expiring contract or subscriptions. Let's look at some examples of alerts and actions before a bottleneck arises. We can send an alert when shipments that are expected to be shipped today have not been shipped, so that our customer service manager can work with the customers and inform them on time. Similarly, with PO receipts, if they haven't been received on the expected arrival date, the warehouse manager can receive an alert, or the vendor manager can contact the vendor and manage the operations. We can also receive alerts for unposted batches to facilitate our month's end. With inter-entity transaction and trades, we can receive alerts if there are errors arising in the processing. We can even push it one step further and automatically run the inter-entity periodic processing. For example, if the errors are mainly due to missing land pack, you can run the process unattended after hours. We can also automate data gathering to focus on action. For example, receive a notification of low stock item before it becomes a problem, or alerts when customers have got overdue balances or overdue transaction. Without having to chase them manually, we can then deal with that. We could also go outside of Sage 300 to retrieve exchange rates once a day and push them into the Sage 300 transactions table. Helping manage collection is part of proactive customer management as well, but some more specific examples going a bit further than the standard Sage core modules. We can combine Sage 300 and Sage CRM data. For example, we do this internally for software subscription reminders. Some information is in Sage 300, some other is in Sage CRM. We have extended scripts that retrieves the one that are about to expire and send them notification. We can also do reminders for Technisoft Service Manager appointments so that the customers are prepared and have all the information in advance of the scheduled appointment. You can use it to send a customer survey after certain types of invoices are generated and completed. We're now going to look at 3 examples a bit more closely. First, we're going to look at examples of sending alerts when sales orders are to check that sales orders are shipped when expected. So we're going to send an email to the customer service manager, which is basically a configurable email address. If some sales orders with today's delivery date haven't been shipped, then we're going to run this across multiple companies. And we can do the same thing with purchase orders. We'll see how that shows in the process scheduler. In our other example, we're going to look at AR customer aging notification to actually put a customer on hold if the outstanding balance is greater than the credit limit, or if there are overdue invoices outside of the normal brackets. So we'll send an email alert to the accounts receivable team to tell them that the customer has now been put on hold. We're going to run this in several Sage 300 companies, and one of the company also uses Teamwork, an extender, to start a workflow when a customer is put on hold. So we'll see how that works. Taking the alert a bit further, putting the customer on hold, and once that update in Sage 300 is triggered, we can then start a workflow to approve the customer being taken off hold or remaining on hold. So let's now look at this in Sage 300. This part of the presentation is about email alerts. So we're going to start with our Outlook, where we have received, through a process that was automated overnight, some email alerts of items I've been monitoring. First one is we see that we have some items that are below their minimum reorder quantity. It's fluorescent desk lamp in location 3 in our company Orc Ltd sample data. I can click here and open the IC location screen in Sage 300. It's prompting me to log on to Sage. I can see information about my stock on hand in the various locations for the item that is below its minimum reorder quantity. Let's configure here. And I can work out what I need to do, whether I should do a stock transfer or something else. The other items we receive alerts on are around orders that don't meet the expected shipment date. So customer order number 1 was expected to ship today and wasn't shipped. Again, I can then go into Sage 300 and find out more information about this order, this customer, and see why the expected ship date wasn't met. Another example here. I don't seem to have any alerts around purchase order that don't meet their receipt date, most likely because we didn't expect a PO today or it has arrived. Our other notification was around customer aging. In this company, Orchid sample data, Mr. Dan Penn, customer 1600, has been placed on hold because they have an overdue balance. The outstanding balance is greater than the credit limit. We have a few other examples here. Again, I can then go into Sage 300, investigate, talk to the account manager, do whatever I need to do to manage this information before I can't process the next order. We also have some alerts happening in other companies. So here in Orc-IN2, we have a list of items that are below their minimum reorder quantity. And we also have a few customers in Orc-IN2 that are over their outstanding, over their credit limit and have been placed on hold. So all this happened in the background running task scheduler like we have seen before. If I now go back into Sage 300 and have a look at the schedule, see how it's made up. I'm finding my daily check schedule, which runs a series of alert scripts in my company Orc Ltd and also some in Orc-IN2 and OA team. I can view here the last log of the process that runs. So we had some emails about items below the minimum reorder quantity. We had some expected OE shipment notifications sent. We have our AR aging notification, which comes with a log that I can open from here. So I can see here which customers have been checked and which customers were put on hold. And that's really good from an audit point of view. Whatever has happened automatically is still audited and saved in Sage 300. Our PO notification was successful, but there was no email to send, nothing to process. And similarly with Orc-IN2, we did run our items below minimum reorder quantity alert and our expected OE shipment in our OA team database. Now I can run this process manually. If I need to rerun it after some information has been refreshed, some new records have been processed, I can click the button run. It will go do its processing and I'll have the information as if it had run automatically. And I'm going to do this for our second example. We're going to run our customer aging alert for two subsidiaries, Orc-IN2 and OA team. You can see the schedule has run successfully. I can also open the log from within a process scheduler. So I can see these couple of customers here have been put on hold and my email alerts are now coming through. Mr. Ronald English in Orc-IN2 has been put on hold and so has Mr. Stroud, customer 2130. And if we look at our second company, in OA team, I have a few more customers that have been put on hold, even Mr. Ronald Black. So let's see what that looks like. Because in this company, we actually have configured a workflow to start. So when a customer is put on hold, the workflow starts. So a customer service manager can review and take the customer off hold or leave it on hold. And in that company, we are using Teamwork, which for those of you who don't know, is a joint product developed with AutoSimply. So it basically integrates AutoSimply chat with Orchid's extender and notes. So here, as the customer is put on hold, a workflow starts and a chat is created. So I'm logged in here as Anne and I'm asked to approve. I may need some more information, which I can ask Steve, the account manager. I can also use my custom inquiry here to check that the credit limit was 7,000, the balance is 10,000. I don't want to go too much over that. We have already approved a few orders to go over the credit limit before. So now I'm expecting some more information from Steve. Steve is also using the Teamwork app. You can see that Mr. Dan Penn has been put on credit hold. And yes, he has some information actually. He has received a document, a proof of the bank transfer from Mr. Dan Penn. Payment has been sent to the bank. Should be in our account tomorrow. And Steve would like the account to be all ready to go for the next order. So he's asking Anne to please take it off hold. And read that conversation, view the document, and if she's okay with all this, can approve it, which in our example here, approving this will remove the credit hold on the customer. Once it's approved, the customer is now off hold and ready to go. And Anne can continue for the other notifications and the other credit hold that she needs to approve. And back in Sage 300, in our OA team company, if I look at Mr. Dan Penn, customer 1600, I can see that he's not on hold anymore. I can see the history here, that he was put on credit hold. Anne and Steve had a conversation. I can view the document that was uploaded to justify taking it off hold. And I can see the rest of the process where Anne approved the removal of the credit hold and completed the process. In this example, we only had one approver, but you can do the same thing with up to 5 approvers. So we're seeing this whole end-to-end process here where we can automate putting a customer off hold if some exceptions, some conditions occur based on our business requirements. A chat starting so that team members can discuss in a secure and open manner. Auditable, all this information is stored in Sage 300. So we know why we've put him on hold and why we've taken them off hold. And I can keep working with Mr. Dan Penn. If Anne rejects the request, then Mr. Dan Penn will remain on hold until more information is requested. We've looked at a few examples of running extended scripts with Process Scheduler in a few companies. So remember, we can send alerts. We can also update some records in Sage 300, insert some records, and from those we can push it to the next step and start a workflow for approval or an alert and a workflow using Teamwork so that team members can chat about this alert. We are focusing on action rather than just sending alerts. In summary, what does Process Scheduler bring you in Sage 300? Particularly if you have multi-entity reality, multiple companies, multiple databases in Sage 300, you may have different stakeholders per entity, repeated manual tasks in Sage 300 that involve logging into multiple databases at month end, at year end, and during the month, running the same reports across entities with slightly different parameters, sending those reports securely to different stakeholders across various entities. You want to have some standardized processes while at the same time supporting some different requirements in different companies. In our example, we saw that only users in the company OA team were using Teamwork. Maybe they were just running a pilot and they're going to bring it into all the other companies. But you have the flexibility to do what you want. Specifically with Report Runner and Process Scheduler, you use Report Runner to work out what reports to run. It is a centralized report execution that controls your parameters and your security of reports. It is reliable and scalable as you add more entities, all configurable in Sage 300. Relatively quick setup. You can start with a pilot and then expand to more companies or more reports. And Process Scheduler puts it all together, working out when it runs and sending you exception alerts running across all the various companies, which is much easier than having a task scheduler. You have one central spot where all this is controlled. Similarly, with Process Scheduler and Extender, Process Scheduler works out when to run processes and alerts, and Extender determines what to do. Flexible task automation, scripts for time-based alerts automation and supporting integration with other systems, starting an approval workflow, using Teamwork for alerts and approval in a chat environment. Again, all this is configurable and saved in Sage 300, so good for audit and security purposes. And it is efficient and reliable and scalable as you add more entities to your Sage 300 environment. And we're now ready for Q&A around Process Scheduler, Extender and Report Runner, or other Orchid modules that work with Sage 300.